What is up, YouTube? My name is Trinity and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. Today I'm going to be telling you about a very scary experience that a woman had while camping on her own along the Appalachian Trail. Now, I've heard this story a couple of different times just because in my spare time I just put on scary stories and like Reddit, Let's Not Meet encounters and stuff like that, and just have it playing in the background while I'm doing whatever I'm doing, because I can't listen to an audiobook or a podcast like a normal person. My favorite stories from those compilations are like middle of nowhere or camping stories, just because stalkers and just creepy people and experiences happening in your house or out and about in a city is one thing, but compared to when you're out and isolated, potentially miles from the nearest human, it makes it a lot scarier. And of course, I'm listening to these stories as I'm planning a camping trip because, you know, that's how my brain works. So this story takes place in 1989, however, just because of the setting and the experience that this woman we're going to discuss had, it feels like it could happen at any time. Nowadays, if something like this happened, you could say, oh, why didn't you call someone with your cell phone? But if you're in the middle of the woods, you might not have service and you could be in the exact same situation. So the person today that we are going to be talking about, her name is Eloise Lindsay. So in 1989, Eloise was 22 years old and she had just finished college and she just didn't really know what to do with her life. And I think a lot of us at that age, or my age, can relate to that. So in order to clear her mind and kind of decide her next steps as to what she wanted to do with her life, she decided to go on a hiking trip with a friend along the Appalachian Trail. So the trail that she was going to be taking was the Foothills Trail. It was about 43 miles starting in South Carolina. About halfway through the trip, she was going to meet up with a friend who was going to, have a resupply for her and accompany her through the rest of the trip. Now, for the average person that's not really outdoorsy, this might seem like a very daunting excursion to go on, especially to just clear your mind. But Eloise was very experienced when it came to hiking and just being outdoors in general. So when she told her parents about this, they were very unconcerned. They knew she could handle herself and they were just like, see you when you get back. The first few days of the trip went great. It was beautiful, she had time to think and just time to herself. However, on the third day of her trip, she woke up in her tent that was situated just off of the trail where she made camp the previous night, and she was just filled with an overwhelming sense of dread and fear, and she couldn't explain why. So she kind of tried to gather herself, figure out, okay, did I forget anything, like checking her surroundings. She had all of her things and decided to just pack up and get back on the trail and keep moving. And while she was packing up her camp, like taking down her tent and everything, she was just scanning the wood line. And she saw a man staring at her. He was about 30 to 40 feet away from her and was obscured by the trees, so when she went to do a double take, he was gone. But regardless, this would freak the hell out of anyone, especially if you already have that bad feeling. And when you're out and isolated, whether you're just on a walk or something, it's very unsettling if it's just you and one other person out there and they don't try to at least say hi or acknowledge you. They're just staring at you. That's very threatening, even if they don't mean for it to be. Because in a situation like that, two people might be nervous, or the one person who was caught kind of looking might think like, oh, I might have accidentally scared them, and want to let them know their intentions aren't bad, but this person just was staring and then disappeared. Eloise kind of questioned if she had actually seen a man standing there, but decided to just pack up and then book it down the trail, like picking up her pace from the previous day, just to put some distance between this person and her if he was actually there. While she was walking, Eloise began to feel very vulnerable, like she was being followed. She would hear voices, though she wasn't sure who it was, but it was a man's voice, so it was likely the man that she had seen because she hadn't seen many other people on the trail at this time. And the longer this went on, mind you, she was on this trail for hours and she had several more days alone before she would meet up with her friend. She began to realize how isolated she was. She was still hearing this man's voice for hours, just following behind her, not making any intention to let her know that she was fine, just kind of keeping at a distance where she couldn't see him, but close enough where she knew he was there. Sometimes she said that this voice didn't sound like they were speaking English, but it also could have been it was just too far away to make out. And other times she said that she heard this person talking to someone else, potentially in a walkie-talkie or something, describing things that she was doing. So that kind of confirmed even more in her mind that she was being watched, and potentially by more than one person. She heard things like, "She's walking fast up the hill ahead of me." And of course, because there was nobody else around, who else could they have been talking about? So as it began to get dark, she began to realize that she likely had to go off the trail and make camp. And this terrified her because she was exhausted, obviously, from being pursued all day. Like, just a day of normal hiking would have been exhausting, but she was trying to outrun this person, and it didn't work. He was still nearby, obviously. She was scared that if she stopped to make camp, what would happen? Could he find her in the middle of the night while she's vulnerable and asleep? And what would he do if he did find her? But regardless, she was pretty sure at this point that she was lost anyways, and stumbling around in the dark while being pursued did not seem like a good idea, so she kind of bit the bullet and went off trail to make her campsite. Now, imagine how terrifying this is. Eloise said when she was in her tent, she tried to lay as still as possible, not moving around, not making any sort of sound, hoping that if the man did come looking for her and pass her sight, he would just walk right past and think that she kept moving. But she said when she began hearing footsteps getting closer and closer, she could hear them circling her little campsite. They never got closer, they never approached the tent, but she can hear them throughout the night just circling. It's like he wanted her to know that he was there. As soon as the sun came up the next morning, she packed up all of her stuff and booked it. Not down the trail like she had the previous day, but into the woods, in the direction she believed that the road would be in. She said that the voice and the footsteps followed her all day again. So even if she wanted to backtrack to the original trail that she was on, she didn't want to because she didn't want to risk running into this person that was still following her. That night, again, she hadn't found the road and she had been traveling all day and she needed to make camp again. And when she did, she said all night she heard those footsteps again. In the morning, she said she kept running. I don't know if she left her tent at this point or if she still had time to pack everything up, but she kept running towards what she hoped would be the road or a town or anything really that had more people that could potentially help her. A few days passed, and Eloise's friend was waiting at their designated meetup site. She had food, water, and any other supplies that Eloise was probably out of or running out of at this point. But Eloise never showed up. After waiting for a couple of hours, hoping that her friend would arrive, she immediately went to the authorities and filed a missing persons report. Police and helicopters searched the surrounding area around the meetup site for 14 days, hoping to find Eloise, but they eventually called off the search because they'd found no evidence of her ever being there. Though 2 days later, she was amazingly found, delirious and dehydrated against a tree, but still alive. It was a hunter who found her, and initially, when approaching her to offer help, she was terrified and tried to fight him off, though she was incredibly weak. She was terrified that this was the person that had been pursuing her for almost 3 weeks now. But thankfully, she eventually accepted that he was there to help. She was taken to a hospital where she gave a detailed account of what all happened to her in these 3 weeks, essentially, in the woods. The man who was pursuing her apparently got very close a couple of times. She had some close run-ins, and one of these times she was forced to abandon all of her supplies, which is why when she was found, she had nothing with her. She said the only thing that kept her alive after days of running without any food or water is she came upon a cache of donuts and pound cake in the middle of the woods, which might sound strange, but apparently it's a normal thing, especially along the Appalachian Trail, with so many hikers, to just leave treats either for a specific person that is camping just to resupply, or just by locals who, want to give appreciation to the people that are, traveling the trail and potentially bringing their business into towns and stuff like that. Unfortunately, Eloise will probably never know who exactly left the pound cake, but whoever it was likely saved her life. Authorities, for some fucking reason, didn't believe her story at all. Despite her having a lot of experience backpacking and camping and hiking, they thought she just became lost on the trail and became scared and delirious and thought people were following her. Which I guess to a degree could make sense, like if you're in the middle of nowhere, your supplies are running out, but she's experienced, so if she wouldn't have been spooked by something, how could she have been run off the trail? why would she run off the trail to try to find a road or a town or anything if the hike was going just fine? You're on a trail, and I know that trails can, in certain places, if they're not well maintained, it could be hard to see where they're going next, but I find it hard to buy that someone who is comfortable enough to go on a 7-day hike, 3 to 4 days of it by themselves, would just immediately get lost and then become that paranoid, you know? Now, like we talked about in my Appalachian Trail video, some even suggested that what was really stalking her were the feral people that live along the Appalachian Trail that have allegedly even attacked rangers. Now, these people are, you know, human beings, but they've been cut off from civilization so long that they've gone feral. They don't know how to talk anymore. They don't know how to, like, communicate with the outside world, which, if this person allegedly had a walkie-talkie and was talking very clearly about her location and her actions, I find it hard to believe that that's what it was. I don't find it hard to believe, though, that just some weirdo creeper was stalking her as she was alone in the woods. That seems like the most simple explanation, considering all of the details, but I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. But what do you guys think about this story? Because I think it's such an interesting and creepy one where there are a lot of things that could have happened, even though I believe the simplest answer is that she was telling the truth and someone was following her. It's not an uncommon occurrence at all, especially with a woman like on her own. But if you have any alternative theories, let me know what you think in the comments down below, including celebrating Summerween, which, if you don't know what that is, it is Halloween in summer in Gravity Falls, and I love Gravity Falls, and I assume if you like me and you know what that is, you probably love it too, so stay tuned for that video, as well as a drinking game video where I go down a huge iceberg of cryptids and I take a drink for all of the ones I don't know, so that's going to be a fun one also. If you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe down below and click the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload. Comment any of your alternative theories or other stories you'd like me to talk about as well. And if you're feeling so kind, please be sure to give this video a like, just because it helps push this video out to other people, and I want to grow this community more. We've been growing a lot lately, and I just want to see us gain more traction and, you know, more people find this so we can all enjoy spookiness together. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.